Hello, I'm Ian Henschke and welcome to Stateline. Also tonight we'll learn about the Adelaide man who survived one of the Second World War's worst prison camps to become one of Britain's best-loved cartoonists. But first to the state's new desalination plant. It was in troubled waters this week after the death of a worker last Friday. Questions were raised about safety on the site and workers walked off the job. They've now returned. Patrick Emmett has the story.
One of the first impressions of Adelaide's new desalination plant is its enormous size. Around 1,400 men and women work across the 60-hectare site. Some are 40 metres below the surface, where the seawater will flow in from a 1.5 kilometre pipe.
If we look to the far end of the chamber, that will be underwater. That's where the seawater will come in, and then through pipes through a wall at that end into a set of pumps on the floor of the chamber, which will then pump the water up through the roof of the chamber up here, up to the start of the actual treatment process.
John Ringham from SA Water led Stateline on a tour of the new plant. On ground level, this is the heart of the operation, where the treatment will happen. The salt water is purified by a process called reverse osmosis.
We're standing next to the rack of reverse osmosis membranes, which will produce the first water at the end of December this year.
The seawater will be pumped into these tubes, which have a polymer membrane to filter out the salt from the seawater.
The membrane acts as the filter, but it's very, very fine material, and it forms a physical barrier to the bacteria, etc., but also allows this reverse osmosis process, which separates the salt molecules away from the water.
When the plant is completely finished at the end of next year, there will be around 7,000 of these tubes and membranes. Not cheap when you consider each rack costs around $1 million and will have to be replaced every 7 years. Also not cheap is the cost of forcing the water through the membranes. It has to be pumped at extremely high pressure. The technical term is about 600 metres head. That means if you pointed a jet of the water upwards, the enormous pressure it's under would see it rise more than half a kilometre into the air. 600 metres, in fact. That's the major reason why so much energy is needed by the plant. To handle that tremendous pressure, Project Manager Duncan Whitfield says special pipes have to be used and specialist workers.
The materials we're using are extremely high-tech. The pressures evident in the Arrow building are such that we have to have extremely qualified welders, high-tech welders. The pumps, the high-pressure pumps are massive. It's just on a massive scale.
The water it will produce will be so pure that it will have to be treated before it's fed into the distribution system. Otherwise it will corrode copper and metal pipes. So to make the water harder, lime from these silos will be added.
With the water that we get, the clean water, the drinking water, we do have to recondition that by adding in calcium carbonate or lime and carbon dioxide to put some hardness and alkalinity back into the water.
As for the brine solution that's left behind after the reverse osmosis, it drops back down the 40 metres to operate a turbine to produce some power to go back into the system. It's then fed out to sea through another tunnel that will run for 1 kilometre. Both the tunnels will be 45 metres below sea level at their deepest. That means the workers operating the boring machines digging them are operating in conditions similar to those experienced by deep sea divers. They have to surface in stages so they don't get the bends from nitrogen in their bloodstream. A barge has already been used to put in risers to hold diffusers at the end of the outlet pipe to spread the brine when it's released.
On the top of those tubes we will put the diffuser nozzles, which will spray the brine back into the marine environment so that we get back to background salinity levels very, very quickly.
In a different area, the pumps that will send the water into the city's pipes are already being tested, but construction work on the site was halted this week after the death of a worker last Friday.
Everybody on the site is absolutely gutted and deeply regret seeing this thing happen. And And the only positive I can take from it is we're going to do everything we can to make sure this never happens again.
Work was halted on the site while the cause of the accident was investigated and a safety audit done on the site. According to the union, one of the results of the audit is that cranes have stopped using soft slings to carry material. They say the man died as a result of one of those slings breaking.
We certainly think, and it has been raised on quite a few occasions by the crew and throughout the industry for some time, that soft synthetic slings should not be used on structural steel.
The consortium building the plant says a number of safety issues raised by the audit are being addressed, but it won't speculate on the cause of the accident until investigations are complete. They say they're still aiming to produce water by the December target, but the union says that's a timeline that was never going to be met.
This fanciful idea that the so-called first water term that they used was almost impossible to reach.
Under the plan, in December the plant is meant to begin producing 15 million litres of water a day. That would eventually build up to 300 million litres a day next year.